Hey, look, remember when Donald Trump won election and everyone thought it was going to usher in a golden age of late-night TV shows?
Yes, I do, Michael. I remember that.
Oh, how did that turn out?
Not so good. Not so good. I'm just having flashbacks to all the Trevor Noah, Stephen Colbert, John Oliver jokes about orange people and Drumpf.
Small hands.
Oh, God, small hands.
But speaking of Trevor Noah, there is something on the horizon, Luke. Now that Donald Trump is leaving to cap off this Donald Trump term, or of course maybe I'm going to look stupid if he wins the day after this comes out, to cap off Trump presumably leaving office, we have one of the greats of late night comedy showing up again, Jon Stewart, who's going to be bringing the fire against Biden. So are you excited for that?
Yeah, no, I mean, we talked about it on another video we did on your channel about how I think because Biden's just going to be extremely less popular, that maybe late night shows will go at him more. He's a white guy as well. That'll help. And,
not an orange guy.
Maybe Stewart will be back to his best, and hopefully, he won't be at the same level as what we've seen for the last 4 years. And hopefully he will also be better than this movie, which he directed, of course.
Yeah. Speaking of biting satire, let's talk about this film. Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that come out in the near and distant past, we give them a couple of watches, and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke, and this week we are not really, I guess, celebrating the release of anything, but maybe celebrating the release of Donald Trump from power, because of course the day after this goes up will be the election. And who knows, maybe we won't find out the result on election night, and if we don't, that could be a pretty dodgy situation, but that's what we're celebrating, and we're going to celebrate it with a look at this film, Irresistible. So I think why don't you tell us a thing or two about Irresistible?
Sure thing, Michael. So yes, Irresistible is a 2020 American political comedy film written and directed by Jon Stewart. It stars Steve Carell, Chris Cooper, Mackenzie Davis, Topher Grace, Natasha Lyonne, and Rose Byrne. Byrne?
Oh, yeah, I think it's Byrne. Is it Byrne?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's Byrne.
I said Gabrielle Byrne was Gabrielle Bryan when we did The Usual Suspects, and I was like, no, of course that's not how you pronounce it. It's just a weird way of spelling the surname. Yeah, but anyway, so Irresistible, yes, and we are doing it because we are very, very close to the 2020 US presidential election, and of course, well, we had to do it. We had to do a political movie, I guess, and we will be doing one next week. But yeah, initially this was going to be like an Avengers or Marvel thing because of the release of Black Widow around this time, but since of course that's been cancelled, there was space, and I thought, hey, why not Irresistible? Why not this great movie that I learned about in May of this year? But it of course didn't come out in May this year. It came out on June the 26th because of the COVID pandemic. Was not released in cinemas. And it was released on premium VOD and selected theatres on June the 26th, like I said. And Michael, no budget here, by the way, but can you guess the box office, if you can call it that? How much did it make?
I mean, I feel like it's going to be very low, so like maybe 1.4 million.
No, a lot less. 364,000.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't go low enough.
Yeah, you clearly didn't. Not a lot of people watched this.
I guess this film wasn't irresistible.
Yeah, it really wasn't irresistible. So let's get into whether we liked it then. Well, did we find it irresistible, Michael? What do you think?
No, not really. It's basically it. And obviously we'll get into why, but I just didn't enjoy it that much.
Yeah, no, I didn't like it.
Yeah, I feel like there was potential in the idea and even some of the things they were trying to drive at.
Yeah, but it just felt so stale. That's the issue. It just felt so stale. I think there is potential. I think there's always potential, really, with how crazy politics is, to do some good, like, funny satire. And you may think, well, you know, how I guess, yeah, it is hard, I guess, with mainstream political figures to do it. But if you actually take a look at, like, small town America and all the stuff going on that we know of in these last 4 years that we'll get into, I think you could really make some fun stuff out of it. But anyway, Michael, let's get on to nitpicks. Do we have actual nitpicks here? Because I don't have any. Do you?
No, I don't have any. It's not a very easily nitpickable film. I guess it's a weird combination of there's a message and then there's the satire comedic element, and then there's also a degree of absurdism, and those three things combined means you can't really have a nitpick for it because the film's not really trying to have a coherent plot.
Yeah, it's not meant to be realistic, is it? I mean, I would hope not anyway. So, yeah, I don't think you can really give it nitpicks, because I did put stuff in nitpicks, but I was like, wait, no, this needs to be in a separate category concerning stereotypes, which we will talk about later on. But first off, of course, Michael, we need to get into the plot. We've skipped off quite a few things here. We're really into the plot quite quickly now. And the film follows, this is the plot, of course, a Democratic strategist who tries to help a local candidate win an election in a small right-wing town. Interesting, because the movie never says it's a right-wing town, but I guess it's just because it's small-town America, so it's got to be a right-wing town. I suppose.
Yeah. And I guess, I mean, obviously, the polls at the beginning would imply that it's at least a town that is accustomed to voting Republican.
Yes, exactly, yes. And of course, this movie, let's start off from the beginning. This movie gets going right away with, I think, probably the most banal political commentary imaginable.
Yes.
The spin room. Guess what, guys? The spin room is where people spin stuff, and the parties lie to the American people. This is so stupid. And you can imagine Jon Stewart sitting down writing this, going, how ridiculous is this? Come on, guys, they're lying to us. And I'm like, yeah, everyone knows. I hope everyone knows. That's what it's for. It's just so like, fucking, just not a great way to start off the movie, I have to say, if that's your hard-hitting satire. What do you think?
No, yeah, 100%. That's exactly what I was thinking. It was, it did feel like just so stupid, and I think that was the first element of absurdism. I already mentioned this film's kind of absurdist, where I literally just have these characters addressing the camera, pretty much. Kind of gave me, Vice flashbacks, where you just get characters kind of talking to the camera, and it's something which, again, could be interesting in some context, but it's a combination of, it's like the worst thing, because it feels pretentious to kind of have that artistic expression of, oh, look, we've got the characters literally addressing the camera, and then to then have them be saying such boring, stupid, like you say, banal things. Yes, it's not very good.
No, yeah, absolutely. I did look at the critical response section, and one part caught my eye. This on Wikipedia, of course. A review from Mark Commode, who said,
he loves to reference Commode.
Yeah, he gave a fairly positive review of the film in The Guardian, comparing it to Wag the Dog and Local Hero, saying, quote, there's something reassuringly nostalgic about Irresistible. Stewart is back on home ground, and this is why I'm going to reference this quote. Commode says, he opens with a TV show-style segment about the falsehoods of, quote, the spin room. I look forward to lying to you in the future that we now take for granted. And yeah, goes back to what I really think about this movie. Mark Commode says, I like it, because this bit of political satire, that seems to be satire from ages ago. But it's not satire now. He's basically in praising it by saying, it takes you back to a good time when this was the satire. It's kind of saying the satire is out of date now.
It kind of, I saw it described as a Capra-style comedy. Of course, Capra is from Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and that's kind of what it makes you think of. I mean, obviously, it's not an identical thing, but that there is a certain, I guess, naivety to it about just being like, oh man, can you believe it? These people are lying. Like, that's the funny thing, that's kind of the thing that deserves to be lampooned. When we're well past that being what people should be pointing to. We know politicians lie at this point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Politicians do lie, and that is what this movie kind of avoids talking about that specifically, but basically does come up with the whole thing about both political parties are awful, which I have you kind of agree with, but kind of don't, and we'll get into later. But anyway, so this guy Steve Carell, who plays a guy called Gary Zimmer, a Democratic political consultant, is down on his luck. He's not liking life, because of course he was apparently a pivotal person in the 2016 Hillary Clinton campaign, which of course ended up not going so well. I can't really remember what happened. I don't think she became president, though. I don't think it was a woman. Yeah, I don't think she managed to win it. So that meant
I think it was that other guy, Donald Trump.
Yeah, Donald Trump. That was it. Yeah, yes, and of course this movie, it's basically it's about the Democrats getting back on it. Basically trying to recapture the people that they lost. Even though, by the way, I will say those Wisconsin voters that Carell's trying to get to vote for the Democrats in the small town weren't the reason why they lost. And I mean, that's the thing. You have this meeting at the beginning of the movie where this white woman is saying, we need to pander to our own base, and it's your African Americans, and then Latinos. She goes like that.
Yes.
So it's just Latino. And obviously she's, it's going to be mocking this woman who's, I don't know, not wanting to reach out to like white working class people or whatever, or real Americans, and doing identity politics shit. But she's kind of right. Like, so many black Wisconsinites, and I don't know how many Latinos there are in Wisconsin, but not as much as black African Americans, I would think. So many black people in Wisconsin just did not vote for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah,
they just didn't. They just stayed home, and it was the same in Michigan as well. Of course, she lost that state as well, and it's like it's kind of true. It's like, yeah, if you just pandered to your base a bit more in 2016, you would have won. She would have won if she just got some, a bit more up on the black turnout, then yeah, she would have done it. But anyway, yeah, basically that.
Yeah, well, she did put hot sauce in her purse at all times. Did you ever hear that?
I did hear that. Yes.
Yeah. It's like, they're going to say you're pandering to black people. Is it working? That's great. I love that.
Is it? Yeah. Is it? Well, no, it didn't work because, of course, she. Yeah. There was this stat that's quite revealing. It wasn't concerning actual black turnout, but well, it kind of was. It was after the 2016 election, because, of course, voter suppression is a big thing in America, especially among African Americans. So there was a survey done concerning African Americans who voted for Obama in 2012 and then voted for Clinton in 2016. Did not vote for Clinton in 2016, did not turn out, did not vote in 2016. And what was the major reason why they didn't? Was it voter suppression, or they just didn't want to? And 97% of the respondents said they just didn't want to, and 3% said voter suppression. So yeah, a pretty big clue there. That's, yeah, you just ignored a whole bunch of people that if you turned them out, you would have won. But that's the thing. After 2016, like, you see a lot of people in the liberal kind of, and you could probably say Jon Stewart falls in this category, like liberal people, were like, oh, we got to win back the white working class diners. We got to go to the white diners and get them to vote Democrat. What's going on? And I was always saying to that, well, you're not going to win them back because these people they voted for Republican for a while, and what cost Clinton was turnout. And it was abnormally high, the white working class people who turned out to vote for Trump in 2016. It was, to be fair, but it's still a case of these people, white working class, non-college educated, they're Republicans, especially the male voters are Republicans. Those they have been. They've been Republicans since, I don't know, Reagan probably. We're going on like 30, maybe 40 years. But anyway, Clinton did put a sizable portion of them off, which is true, and that's the thing. It was just her. But anyway, I've gone a bit astray there. Basically, the point is that Carell kind of gets things right, kind of gets some things wrong. I think anyway. But yeah, let's talk about the rest of the plot. So he goes to this Wisconsin town, Deer Lake, and Michael, and what does he try to do?
Well, I mean, his main thing is that he sees a ex-military person who gives a speech that goes viral, where he pretty much, says that they're not standing up for the working man, these elites in the governance of the town. And this guy, Steve Carell, reasons that, in fact, he could appeal to this ex-Marine because he would be, I don't know if it's an ex-Marine, but whatever, ex-military, he could be a Democrat voter. The values of standing up for the working person, those are democratic values. And therefore he goes off to try and get this guy to run as mayor for the Democrats in that town. That's his plan. Yeah, no,
that is his plan. And so, yeah, it's a case of him saying, hey, this is going to put the Democrat Party back on the map. We're going to be we're going to challenge the Republican Party when it comes to winning the white working class vote. Those people in diners, they'll be saying, I'll be saying I'm with her in 4 years' time, even though, of course, it's Biden now. But it could have been Kamala. It could have been Kamala Harris.
Yes, exactly. And that would have been very easy to get these people to vote for Kamala Harris, no doubt.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, but it is all aesthetic, I guess. That's the thing, it is all aesthetic. That's what the Democratic Party and I think, I think the Republicans as well recognize. And it is true, which I think we'll get onto later on. But yeah, I think we have to... Is there anything to talk about really in terms of the overall meat of the plot? Because it's basically...
The only other thing I wanted to bring up that was to do with the plot, apart before we get into the messaging, was the romance aspect, because I think that's the only thing I can think of that's purely the plot. I just wanted to say that when I first saw it coming, I was like, and this was of course with reference to the guy's daughter, and then that doesn't end up being the main romance plot. Instead, the romance plot is between him and this woman called Faith, who is his rival. And again, it seems kind of unnecessary and shoehorned in. And in that sense, the only real criticism I have of it is it's just annoying to have these unnecessary by the numbers romance plots shoehorned into films like this. But, I guess they've got to do it because that's the thing.
It's also like, these Republicans and Democrats, they're basically the same. They just want to beat each other. And at the end of the movie, of course,
they get married. They literally get into bed with each other.
Because they're DC swamp creatures. So, yeah, that's the message that Jon Stewart is saying. I mean, but yeah, it is, again, it's kind of true at the same time, but we shall move on.
Yes.
To the twist. Because, so Jack Hastings is the one who's running for mayor as a Democrat. He thinks he's a conservative, I guess, but he runs for the mayor of the town against the Republican mayor, who apparently they're friends. I'm not quite sure. But what's he called? What's the mayor called?
Yeah, something like Bauer or something.
Yeah, Bauer, that's it. Herr Bauer, as Steve Carell says at one point. So it's Bauer versus Hastings, the Democrat versus the Republican. And, basically this becomes an important national race, and I have no idea why. This would get like an article in the New York Times at the most, not CNN and MSNBC covering this. But yeah, Stewart has to go there because he wants to, I guess, go after those people as well. Not just talk about politics in 2017, I guess, where this is set. He has to go after everyone, show how corrupt the damn system is. So comes to election day, Michael. Election day.
Yeah.
Bauer versus Hastings. It's very close. It's very tight. No one votes though. No one votes. So this is from Wikipedia. The best way to explain it. Yeah. No one votes, which confuses both Gary, Steve Carell, and Faith. It is revealed that the election was actually a setup. Diana shot the video of her father's immigration speech so that Gary and Faith would pour thousands of dollars into the election, which would help the town through its financial trouble due to the recent closure of the military base. Gary is shocked that Diana would play him, and Diana then counters him by explaining the town set this up because DC politicians play small towns like theirs all the time. When Gary reveals he was hoping that there would be a spark between them, Diana rejects him. Later, Gary and Faith enter into a sexual relationship, and Diana becomes mayor of Deer Lakin after a special election. Okay, so we're going to get into the politics later, holding it off a bit. And there are some things, like DC politicians play small towns all the same. Now I'm sure that's what Diana would think. But anyway, the big problem, Michael, can you tell me the big problem with this plot, with this twist, I guess?
Well, I mean, so I don't know what you're going to think the big problem is. I think there's several big problems with it. One of which is that it's very silly and stupid, but I don't know if that's exactly what you're going for. Well,
yeah, I mean, it's just impossible.
Yeah.
It's not possible. Like, you can't fake an election. There are term limits. I assume Steve Carell and all his fucking people who are researching this election, what they would do is they would go back to the last election, see who ran, what was the percentage of vote, etc., to gather some data, you'd imagine. But this is what I'm confused. How does he? Surely there must have been a previous election. How does he not work out then? Okay, there's not an election this year. If the last, this was set in 2017. The last election may have been 2015, and then it was 2011, 2007, 2003, 1999, etc. Basically and that's very possible. Or it could just be, most elections are either in 2016 or in 2014, basically in the even years. But it is possible for it to be in odd years. I know this, but surely he would see how come this term limit is only like 3 years or 2 years or even 1 year? How come there's already an election coming up? Why is this happening? And obviously, I mean, then they'd be fucked. Then the whole plan would fall apart. Just a little bit of research, and surely Carell and all his, wonder kids that are with him would have figured it out. Don't you think?
Yeah. Basically, that's the thing. Yeah, it makes. I mean, that's why I was being a bit generous when I said it's a little bit silly. It's a weird thing because on the one hand, I do like films that have a kind of punch at the end, like a thing where it doesn't just end with a fizzle, it ends with a bang. And in some sense, this film does end with a bang because it is a bit of a twist that it turns out the whole election's been fake. But then obviously, is it that much of a satisfying twist when you realize it's really stupid? It feels, I think the issue is, that obviously there's many things in this film which I kind of feel a bit silly, and you want to excuse that. But I think the issue with this is it feels very just childish. It feels like such a goofy scheme and such a harebrained plan, and you're just like, it's weird, and it's hard to take seriously in the film.
Yeah, and I think what they need to do to make it just a better twist is play it up more at the beginning, the guy who brings the video to Steve Carell. Because he's there in one scene and then he's gone. And then when Steve Carell at the end of the movie goes, wait, is that Evan? That was the guy who brought in the video. And, he's hugging Diana or whatever. I'm like, wait, who is that guy? Who is Evan?
Yeah, definitely. I had no idea.
Steve Carell is remembering this guy, and I'm thinking, is he one of the people from the town that... Why is Carell so confused? I was like, oh, he's the guy right at the start of the movie. Like, he's in it for like 10 seconds. If you want him to be a central point in the plot in the movie, play it up more. Literally play it up more. That's what you got to do. Have him like run across the room to Steve Carell to show him the video. Like, have him be instrumental in telling Steve Carell about this guy. And not just in the movie for 10 seconds. And yeah, I think maybe to make it work as well, you could have the fact that this election actually was real, but nobody cares. Nobody cares who won. Surely that would be it, right?
Yeah, so they don't care who wins because they only want the money. Yeah, that would make more sense, and that would be the way to achieve it without it feeling so silly.
Yeah, but again, that would be shit from my point of view, as it also would minimise the difference between the parties. That the voters would definitely prefer a Republican or a Democrat. They don't just care about DC politicians. But yeah, that's for later on. But yeah, I guess there is better ways to do it, but I think overall you have a town of, I think he said 5,000 people. There's 5,000 people in this town. And
there used to be 15,000, now there's 5.
Yeah, and you expect 5,000 people to all keep a secret as well. Just absolutely ridiculous all round. Just completely stupid. But yeah, I guess, whatever, it could have been done better, but even if it had done better, just the overall idea is awful. The only way you can do it, again, is have the election be real, but nobody cares. But then there's some other problems, wouldn't you say?
No, yeah, basically that's it.
Yeah, anything else to say on the
I do
plot?
agree. No, I think we should move on to the message, because this film is quite message forward.
Stereotypes first.
Oh, sorry, yeah, stereotypes, yeah.
Yeah, because of course this is a comedy. This is a satire, Michael.
Yes.
This is what this is. This is a satire. So we'll talk about, of course, this movie satirizes, the difference between rural Americans and East Coast Americans, or basically urban Americans. Americans who live in New York and DC, and those who live in the heartlands, like Deer Lake in Wisconsin. And so, shall we start off with the stereotypes? Because there are some hit and miss stereotypes overall.
Yes, yeah. What are yours? Well, I guess should we start with the stereotypes for the Poories or the Coasties?
Yep, the Poories first.
Okay.
We'll do the Poories first. Because, yeah, that's the thing. That's one of the stereotypes. They're poor. They're, I don't know, just not in the 21st century. So Steve Carell, of course, goes to this hotel, and they don't have Wi-Fi in 2017.
I know, yeah, it's crazy.
One of the most. That was, of course, there was something before that I'll talk about. But I think that is the most ridiculous thing. This hotel in 2017 doesn't have Wi-Fi. Just completely unbelievable.
Well, I like to say about America that it is basically a first world country on both the coasts, and in between it's basically just Romania. That's how I like to do it. I told my dad that one time. I said that's how I think of America, and he said, I wouldn't say first world, because we like to dunk on America. Yeah, because we're so much wealthier and better off than the Americans, aren't we? No, but that's the thing. I do feel like in some sense it's an exaggeration, but it is like in a way I do feel there's parts of America where the best country I can think of to conflate them with would be like Romania. Like if you just imagine going to some kind of weird hostel in Bucharest, and you could just imagine like that's how I imagine it would be to go to one of these small towns. But yeah, I do think.
But they still have Wi-Fi.
Yeah, they still have Wi-Fi. Yeah.
That's the thing. I have been actually to small town America, and it is pretty grim. I was in the northeast of the country. It is pretty grim. I will say that. But they still have internet. They don't have dial-up. Like that's the thing. I think if you're talking about a lack of Wi-Fi, this would have to be set in 2007. I have to imagine by, like, say 5 years ago, everyone had Wi-Fi. I just don't think it's not possible for like a hotel, especially a hotel, not to have Wi-Fi. Are you kidding me? Anyway, that's the first one, and then the second one is, or the second stereotype is that this. I don't know. Actually, it's not really a stereotype. It's a weird one.
Okay, I'm ready for this.
Actually, no, this deserves to be in the East Coast Elites things. Yeah. No.
Okay, so, well, I had one for the not
I was
East
talking about
Coast
the
Elites.
burger.
Okay, that's funny. I wanted to talk about one of the other things. It's that they're all so friendly, and I know that is kind of explained later on a bit with the fact that they're kind of trying to dupe this guy. But either way, as you experience it in the first watch, it kind of feels like it's playing on the fact that you imagine in a small town, like obviously, for example, everyone knows his name immediately. And again, I realize it's something which is explained retroactively through the logic of the film, but the first time you experience it, it feels like it's supposed to be a stereotype on the fact that in a small town, everyone knows your name, you know. And I mean, obviously, there's another line he has about, you know, you don't lock your, I don't know why I could be in that voice, you don't lock your doors. And that's kind of a lot of the stuff you hear about, you know, these small towns, like, oh, everyone knows your name, they know how, you know, everything you lack, and you don't have to lock your doors around these parts because everyone trusts each other. Yeah, that's kind of how I imagine it being, and that's, and very quaint and lovely. Yeah,
very quaint and lovely. And it's, to some extent it's true, but also just completely throws out the flip side of that, which is
the meth dealers.
There's actually no mention of drugs in this. Oh, there is a bit, actually, the brother of the mayor. But yeah, overall, it's just really, really shit, I think. That kind of, these people don't have Wi-Fi, they talk to each other. Also, this next one as well. Only this woman gives Steve Carell a coffee, and it's like cream and 2 sugars. And
because they're all fat.
Well, no, it's not all fat. It's like there's only one type of coffee. As in people in rural America don't know about like a latte or a cappuccino. Like they only have their coffee one way. I just think that's such a mid-2000s stereotype as well. When people used to say, "Oh, like latte liberals," it's like, right. So, I mean, come on, coffee. It's like people like the coffee different ways. You know,
and Americans are obsessed with coffee. They love going to their diners and getting their coffee poured at the diners. Yeah, getting a refill on their cup.
Yeah, no, they do. They love it. And this one woman who says like a coffee is just one thing. It's ridiculous. And so there's that. And then there's this bit which I thought was a bit weird. Okay, so it's like near the end of the movie, and this is I guess Jon Stewart trying to overcompensate by he's kind of mocking Steve Carell on the East Coast Elites, but basically throughout the movie, of course, they've been giving him burgers when they don't actually serve burgers in this restaurant, which we'll get onto later. But the explanation that Diana gives is that this bar is German, so it only does German food. And I'm thinking, just get the fuck out of him. Are you serious? In a struggling town? Oh, sorry, we don't serve an incredibly popular food, like a meal, like burgers. No, we don't serve it. We only serve fucking bratwurst. How niche? How niche in a town with 5,000 people? Are you kidding me? Oh my god. So
I do like that idea of like a struggling town where all the businesses are falling apart, and yet they've only got incredibly niche shops.
Yes.
So it's first of all, the Fabergé egg shop shut down, and we thought that was going to be the worst of it. But then the antique rug shop shut down.
Yeah.
Okay. You've really been hit hard.
God, it's just awful. And
we used to love that Ethiopian restaurant, but you just can't get it anymore.
Yeah, and I love how she also says, they don't serve Budweiser here because it's they only serve
because it's German. Yeah, that one I thought was particularly strange, especially seeing as let's talk about the fact Budweiser sounds like a German name anyway. But no, basically it's so silly.
The most common fucking beer, and they don't sell it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, because I mean, have these people never been to an ethnic restaurant before?
Yes.
Like if you go to any kind of restaurant, it's like you can order. I mean, you can order if you go to an Indian, you can order a Kingfisher or something like that.
I bet you can have a Coca-Cola.
Yeah, exactly. yeah, I like that. Just like, can I get a glass of water? Sorry, we don't do water. only German food.
Yes.
Water's some basic shit. No,
yeah. I go into an Indian restaurant. No, they only do Indian tonic water. No, I just like a tap of water. No, sorry, we don't do that. You can only get this Indian tonic water, specifically from Calcutta. You fucking DC elites. Come on, you think we're all stupid?
Yeah. Do you think we're plebs?
Yeah, and
we don't have the common food where we live.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's him overcompensating. But actually, this bar is, I guess, more niche than you give it credit for. It's not just a dumb burger and beer place. And I'm thinking, okay, if that's the case, well, why doesn't it have Wi-Fi then?
There's inconsistency.
Yeah, it's just like that overcompensate.
Well, anyway, it's because Wi-Fi isn't German enough. Like, we don't have Wi-Fi. We only have Wi-Fi.
Yeah, God. What if, and this could happen, what if the bartender had a Nazi tattoo? He's like, well, actually, if you know your history, you'll know that is a perfectly reasonable thing for him to have.
Because of the Blues Brothers. I hate Illinois Nazis.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one. Yeah, Jon Stewart trying to overcompensate here. Yeah, Steve Carell, he's so dumb. He thinks these guys are simple, even though at first, the fact that they don't have Wi-Fi kind of shows they're a bit simple. But let's move on to another stereotype of rural America that isn't addressed in this movie. So this is a big one. Town of 5,000 people. I would think at least a dozen of them think Steve Carell raped children. He is a Democrat from DC, and none of them, even though they all know who he is, it's Gary, DC Gary. He's a Democrat. They know he's in politics. Not one of them accuses him of raping children in a pizza place in Washington.
That is true. That
what
was a
is going on
there? I didn't think about that, but Luke, you've really made me realise something quite insane, actually. And I genuinely can't believe they missed that out because. To be fair, even I was starting to believe it. This is
what I'm talking about in terms of comedy. Like that's good for comedy if one of them was just crazy, but no, you don't get that because as it said in Wikipedia, it's a soft satire, and that is definitely the case. They don't. That's the thing. They don't really skew up rural America like how they should. Like that would be a great way to skewer them, because you bet a couple of them in that town think that. I bet you go to a small town in America. You talk to a white, working-class, non-college educated male, talk to them about Democrats and whether they sexually assault children, and I bet you'd find some people nodding their heads. I bet you, especially definitely in 2017 as well, when that conspiracy theory was gaining traction, and this is it goes into my other point I have, which is that I'm basically saying they don't portray rural America as, I guess, screwed up as some people actually are in rural America. And a line that was said earlier on in the movie, when Steve Carell is discussing in the bar, I've never been to Wisconsin apart from Madison, and one of the people laughs, Madison isn't Wisconsin. It's not Wisconsin, Madison. It's not. Which is something I can imagine, some of these guys in Deer Lake, in a small town in Wisconsin, saying, because you don't know, Madison is a college town.
Yeah, I do know, and it's the capital, and it's really pretty from what I've seen.
Yeah, quite a liberal thing, but it captures rural America decently well. Just, it doesn't really portray that hatred towards liberal areas, but it kind of gets in there. It's like, this Madison.
Yeah, I feel like this presents like a lot of the small-mindedness of these people as charming, which is
well, that's the thing.
Fun.
It's the small-mindedness it can be charming, but that right there it's not charming, no matter how much you say it, because the fact is, Madison is in Wisconsin. It is a real place. It has real people living in it, and that this idea which exists in small town America, which isn't a true idea, is cities and towns, they're not real America. Well, most people live there, so if that's not real America, then what is real America? It's just your bubble that you're in. That's real America, and it's just completely. I just really dislike that idea. And again, you say it's portrayed as charming, but in actual fact, that statement should not be portrayed as charming. It should be portrayed as I guess it unintentionally shows from my interpretation that this is what these rural Americans, a lot of them unfortunately, do think. And you I don't think you'd ever hear like an urban someone who's living in New York saying like Deer Lake in Wisconsin isn't real America. But people from Deer Lake, and they'll say that all the time about, like, say, Madison in Wisconsin, even though, again, perhaps so many more people live in Madison than fucking Deer Lake. But there you go. That's my rant, I guess, over about that.
No, I mean, I agree. Basically, I do think, the film presents it as charming, but I also agree with you that it probably shouldn't be seen as that, because it is, it's basically showing how these people think that people who think different from them are in some way inauthentic.
Yeah, it's how Republicans act about Milwaukee. I know in Wisconsin, they say, like, Milwaukee's not real Wisconsin. Basically, that there was a lot of battling, because the Wisconsin Republican Party, one of the worst Republican parties out there. I know this, and basically, I can't remember the story, maybe a year or two ago, and about the Wisconsin GOP and basically their messaging. Yeah, I'm not being very specific here, but it was like, Milwaukee, that's not really in Wisconsin, That's this other place. And again, it's this kind of attitude, Madison isn't really Wisconsin, or Milwaukee isn't really Wisconsin. Like you say, Michael, it is used to basically illegitimize these places. So, we have to cater to the needs of people who think like that. And people who think like that probably, they're not the most unracist people. you would have to say. So yeah, there is certainly some problematic things
Well,
about.
hold on a minute. Donald Trump is probably the most unracist person ever, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the thing, though. It's like, like you say, it's presented as charming, but it's really not. If you think about it, it's really not charming. But let's now get into the stereotypes of the East Coast elites. What do you think of Steve Carell's character in this movie, Michael?
I think he's maybe a bit one-dimensional, a bit uncomplicated, a bit of a stereotype, you might say. He seems to be. I liked one of my favorite ones actually is I didn't know that people from the East Coast are afraid of dogs. I never knew that before. That's one stereotype I'd never encountered.
They don't like dogs. They really don't. They don't know anything about Wisconsin.
Yeah, they've never ever seen an animal before.
They haven't. No, they don't know about Wisconsin. They don't know about the fact that farmers stick hands up cows, which I thought everybody was aware of to some extent. Yeah. And yeah, they don't know that people can be kind. Steve Carell gets a free dessert, and it just blows his mind. Like, wow, have a good one. I can't believe this. I just got a free dessert. God, incredible. And then we'll go back to the point which I originally put in the rural America stereotype, but deserves to be in the East Coast elite stereotype, because apparently Steve Carell is stupid for thinking that if you order a burger and a Budweiser at a bar, then you're an idiot. Because of course, how would you you just expect every bar in rural America to serve Budweiser? Come on, you idiot. And I think the whole thing is ridiculous, because I'm like, well, why lie? Why not just say, no, we don't have it? And he'd go, oh, all right, okay, I'll get something else. It makes you look more suspicious.
Yeah, that's the other thing, actually. It's like, it's a really, so yeah, you just go like if anything, that makes them look more stupid, because it should be like, could I get her a beer? And then they're just like, yes, even though they don't have it. It makes them look like the weirdos. Yeah, no, it makes them look like completely weird. And yeah, like I said, if Carell found out, his suspicion levels would probably go through the roof. Like, why the fuck are they doing this? But yeah, it portrays East Coast elites as ignorant for thinking all like bars in America serve burgers and Budweiser. When I'm gonna guess here, they do, and if they don't, they're the exceptions to the rule. That's what I'd say. Let's move on actually to the Democratic Donor Party in New York. Remember this, Michael? Yes. I liked that. That was my favourite scene. Yeah, I did like that. I love the line, obviously referencing Trump, that someone says, he's a criminal. I know he's a criminal. I've done deals with him. That's just a great line. Just an absolutely perfect line. So credit to Jon Stewart for that. Also, someone mentions fuckface von Clownstick. Do you remember that? Yes, I do remember that. Of course, that's what Jon Stewart called Donald Trump for many years. Even getting Donald Trump to repeat that on Twitter. Fuckface von Clownstick. So Jon Stewart there giving himself a pat on the back for that. I do think when Jack Hastings was talking to the black girl. Oh yeah, and the person with the pussy hat. Yeah, the pussy. I also read that down. That was a bit it's just on the nose. Yeah, a bit too far. Like, she has a woke shirt on. It's like, all right, yes. Yeah, calm down. It was okay, and then you've just fucking blown past it. Now it's just pure shit. Now it's just all stereotypes about liberals. They wear their pussy hats and they're woke and all that. Shitty satire. But I think the first part was good. So, we'll give him a thumbs up for that. But it wasn't as good as the billionaire who was concerned about Israel. What do you think about that, Michael? Yeah, that was really strange because, I don't even know what that was getting at. Obviously, Jon Stewart is Jewish, especially in the UK recently, given the climate which we've spoken about regarding thoughts on Israel. It was very strange to watch this and just be like, oh, it's some kind of robot billionaire who wants to know that they have support for Israel. No, but I found it really funny. Yeah, it was quite funny. It's true. I guess it's based on Sheldon Adelson, this guy who's almost dead, who just gives loads of money to Republicans and is very concerned about Israel. That's what the hilarious thing is. These people who are concerned about settlements in a country thousands of miles away. Yes, yeah. People are worried about Israel. Yeah, just basically shows how weird this obsession with Israel is. It's all about the Benjamins, baby. It is all about the Benjamins. Dun, dun, dun. I remember when she said that, and then she said, give an example, and she said AIPAC, and then people had to try and figure out how to say, no, actually AIPAC doesn't give money, even though it has the word PAC in it. It's not actually a PAC. It's just a. I like how we've moved so far beyond the point of actual discourse that people are surprised when they ask a question and then they get a response.
Yes.
Like people are just like, oh yeah, well, give an example. APAC. Oh, she gave an example. Shit, we weren't expecting that. We were expecting this to just, amount to nothing.
Yeah, APAC. Yeah, it's true. And again, this is a great representation of it. And just weird Jewish billionaires who I assume is Jewish who care about Israel. I mean,
I don't think his voice was funny enough though. He didn't go like full on "Oi vey."
I think his hair was a bit too wild as well. I don't think a billionaire would have hair like that. But
although, what about that? What was it? Howie Hughes, the guy who used to run all the casinos, and he was a weirdo.
Yeah, I
he
guess
had strange hair.
Yeah. But anyway, we'll get on to now. That's the stereotypes, I guess. So to sum up, I guess the rural American stereotype just completely shit. They're either really dumb or they're actually smarter than liberals think, or it also misses a key part of rural American culture, which is spitefulness towards liberals and major cities like Madison, even though they say it a bit, and like you said, Michael, it is portrayed as kind of nice, but again, if you think about it a bit, I think you'll come to the conclusion it's not. And in terms of the stereotypes for East Coast elites, just really shitty. Apart from that Israel billionaire scene, and also apart from the Democratic donuts in New York, a couple of lines.
Whenever we talk about this topic right now, which we've only talked about this one time, I always remember in The Hills Have Eyes, where the guy who's supposed to be a liberal gets made fun of by the dad who's a Republican because he's like, oh, you don't believe in gun rights. Anyway, in the end, the liberal ends up saving the day by shooting all the mutants with a gun. It's a great film. It shows how liberals can be men too sometimes.
just sometimes, though. Just sometimes. So
just when they get attacked by mutants.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, I feel like this film could have been improved with if it had some Hills Have Eyes elements in it. Just like, suddenly halfway through, Steve Carell notices he's being tracked by people. Next thing you know, turns out there's some crazy hillbilly murderers trying to kill him. Love it.
That'd be great. Yeah, liberals.
That's a good stereotype they didn't get. The kind of Texas Chainsaw Massacre evil rural people.
I mean, I don't think it's that common a stereotype, to be honest. They didn't. That was the thing, though. They didn't really portray rural people as crazy as they are, or some of them are, which I have alluded to. And there was not really a lot of talk about guns. But maybe that's what we'll get onto next, concerning the political messages that this film portrays. So, I want to start off, I guess, with a bit of a simple one. This girl, Diana, scolds Steve Carell for going low. This happens near the end of the movie.
Yes.
When he could release some damaging information about the mayor helping his brother, nepotism. And the girl quotes Michelle Obama. And this line is meant to shame Steve Carell.
It's very strange. That was so weird.
Yeah, and the movie... Here's the thing. I think Steve Carell is completely right here. But the movie portrays he is wrong. It's like, he shouldn't be doing this. No, it's going low. And what he says actually is completely correct. Like, no, this is true. Like, this person helped. It was nepotism. I mean, this person helped get his brother out of jail. He abused his power completely. Yeah, it's true. And on the other side, you have the Republicans slinging all that kind of shit, which are just, totally made up. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And Jon Stewart seemed to be on the side of, no, we should always go high. We shouldn't sink to their level.
Yeah, which is a bit concerning when...
Yeah. There was also this other political message, which I think Jon Stewart actually refuted, which was good to see. There was this talk from Steve Carell at the beginning, talking to Jack Hastings, that we just need to listen to each other. We need to learn to talk to each other. Republicans don't own the values of, faith and flag and all of that, which is a Pete Buttigieg line. He loves to use that in the Democratic debates. And I think since Carell said them, and that's not what the town wants or needs, they want money to help themselves, that this is Jon Stewart basically rejecting what Steve Carell was saying. Another example is he says, guys like me don't know how to talk to guys like you, when it's actually guys like Steve Carell don't offer anything like, or they don't offer people like Jack Hastings anything. Do you get me, Michael?
Yeah, exactly.
And that seems to be the message, so it seems to be good. Jon Stewart is kind of, I think, rejecting that kind of, we just need to listen to each other. We need to embrace these Republican values, get people on our side. And that's not what Democrats, or even Republicans, but especially Democrats, should do, right? That's his message, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell, because obviously the problem is, the first time you watch the film, it plays off as sincere. And then obviously the question is, I guess, is it fully undone by the end reveal that it's kind of all a big farce, or is some of it supposed to be serious? I guess the thing is, I'd say it's probably not clear, so that would probably stand up as a criticism. I wouldn't say it's obvious that he's criticising that. I would say...
the Pete Buttigieg line, it's not obvious that he's criticising that Republicans don't own those values. Because I think it kind of is, by the fact that Carell is saying that, but he's not actually It's not actually doing anything to help the town.
Oh, yeah, okay, I kind of, yeah. I mean, it's kind of a weird situation because, yeah, basically, it's... I think, in a sense, the idea of the film, of him kind of going over there to try to connect to these voters, is supposed to be understood as a good thing. But yeah, I think kind of the way he presents it himself, is actually, it's probably supposed to be taken as kind of a criticism of him. And actually, on that note, I thought it was weird. I expected this to go in more of an obvious direction, but regarding the fact that he is kind of over managing the campaign, and I thought, I was like, oh, here's what's going to happen. It's going to be that he's gone over to this place to kind of try to connect with these working class or, rural voters, and then he's come in and brought in all his own people who are going to be, he's going to be introducing all his own campaign strategies, and the big reveal is going to be that he's failing because he's making all of these assumptions based on, he hasn't actually come over here to try to connect to these people, because he's basically just brought in all his old DC staff, all his old DC methods, and he'd find out he's losing, and he'd go, oh, why am I losing? And he'd go, well, it's because, you're using these methods that are tried and true in where you're from, but here they just don't work. And he'd go, oh, okay. I thought that's where I was going, which I don't necessarily think is a missed opportunity, because I would be kind of broadly indifferent to that as a thing, but I think it would have been a more interesting direction, at least in terms of there being a more obvious, this is almost a plot point more than anything, but a more obvious second act, because I was kind of thinking, oh, well, the message is going to be that, basically he comes in a classic want versus need thing. He wants to come in and connect to these people by introducing all of his own preconceptions about how politics should be done, but he needs to discover that actually politics is done in different areas, and that's how you need to reach out to people. Obviously, again, with the assumption, which you and I don't necessarily grant, that the goal of the Democratic Party should be to try and reach out to these people, but whatever. So I was kind of expecting that, and I thought there was, so that was kind of a political message I thought was going to be there, and then it wasn't, but it was weird because I thought it was really obviously set up by the fact that there's a big deal out of him bringing in all these people, he's kind of micromanaging, saying like, oh, we need the cows to be quiet, the cows can't be making too much noise and all that stuff. So yeah, I don't know what you think about that.
It did start off like that, and then it just kind of dropped. Like, it's more, I guess, like this guy doesn't really, not that he doesn't know how to run a political campaign, it's just that he doesn't know about rural America. He doesn't know that cows can't be told what to do, they're not like dogs, because he's an East Coast elite. That kind of thing.
Yes, okay, yeah.
Rather than politics, probably. But yeah, I think overall that is the message. And this is a good message, I think, that, hey, this town doesn't want or need people talking to each other and values and so on. This town,
exactly.
Yeah, you see the whole campaign that Steve Carell is, talking about. Hardly any policies are mentioned. I mean, there's those pamphlets which are handed out, but that's, just used for comic relief. They don't talk to Jack Hastings about this is your position on guns, on healthcare, etc. And the point at the end of the movie, of course, is so much money goes into candidates rather than helping the town or state, and it's completely true. Campaign finance reform has made the situation really, really shit. But I agree with the overall point. Before I go on, do you think that's the case? I agree with the overall message.
Yeah, basically, I do agree with you. And obviously, the fact that that's kind of, the big joke or the big punchline at the end, that essentially they're in it not really for the policies, not for that kind of situation, but just for, the fact they'll get the money from the campaigns, and basically. Yeah. And obviously the fact they use that money to actually help themselves, which is ultimately much better for them. So I agree with that.
Yeah, that should be, that's a good message, but here's where I completely disagree. The fact that the town agrees with that point, that Diana agrees that the town are all in on, let's just put politics aside and let's just get this money, of course, let's go back to the Wikipedia article here. So, Gary is shocked that Diana would play him, and Diana then counters him by explaining the town set this up because DC politicians play small towns like they're all the same, which is true. It's true, but would I expect Diana to think that? And would I, or maybe just one or two people in the town, but would I expect that idea to capture the town, and all the townspeople would think that, rather than, oh no, wait, he's a Democrat, I hate him because he's a party which is pro-choice and wants to take my guns away. That's the thing. This movie doesn't focus on the genuine political differences that would exist in this town and in America. I guarantee that in this fictional town, various people would hate to have a Democrat as mayor more than they would like to see the town revived. That's I just hate that. But I don't like that assumption that, oh yeah, all these people are kind of apolitical, they don't really like DC politicians. Some of them, because it's small town America, would be firmly pro-Republican, would be firmly, yeah, the Democrats are out to take our guns, they're the party of child molesters, they aren't pro-life, they want to kill babies, they're murderers, and that is very much the case. I remember there was an article that was released.
Sorry, Luke, you might want to. That is very much the case. Sounded like you were saying that they very much are child molesters. You literally, the quote right there, that could be taken out of context. You literally said they're child molesters.
I don't think so, given my previous context.
No, I don't know, Luke. I'm gonna quote that out of context.
Yeah, well, I think that is very much the case that a large plurality of voters in that town would think that about the Democrats. So maybe not, the child raping, because that's a bit extreme. Some of them would. But certainly a large plurality would think that the Democrats are going to take their guns. The Democrats are going to, murder these babies. The Democrats want to institute socialism or communism. And so the town wouldn't care about, we don't really mind who wins this election. We just want money for the town. No. It would be some people who in this town who definitely would hate to see a Democrat as town mayor and would not care at all about seeing the town revived if it meant that you had a Democrat like Jack Hastings who wants to take away their guns in charge. I guarantee it. And yeah, that's what I think overall. Like this movie again, Jon Stewart just kind of misses out on the genuine political differences in this town and how extreme things are, how polarized things are. And it's rural America is just as they hate liberals, they hate Democrats. Simple as. I remember reading an article from. Basically, it was 2017, so about the time when this movie is set. And I think it was the New York Times. I do remember reading this because it was about when the NFL was getting political and so on, and voters were turned off from watching the NFL. And the New York Times went to interview rural Trump voters who. Basically, Trump, when he got in, he didn't do anything. He just complained about the media and so on. And the basic premise was, well, do these Trump voters still back him, even though he hasn't done anything that he said in terms of policies and so on? And they found that now these Trump voters didn't mind because they hated the Democrats more than they wanted Trump to do anything for them. Like they hated, liberals, the media, and that was their driving force behind backing Trump and why they still liked him and still support him. Because their hatred for the other side overwhelmed anything that they wanted out of him. And I think, exactly the same case here. And Jon Stewart, unfortunately, doesn't understand that. And I think it's kind of impossible to do a satire movie about small-town America, or, all the DC politicians hate everyone, without really focusing on the fact that a large section of that rural town would absolutely despise Jack Hastings and would maybe think Steve Carell was a child molester as well. Just maybe. So yeah, that's my conclusion.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of thinking that, like, I expected them to encounter more hostility. It was kind of weird how throughout the whole film, nobody responds negatively to their presence there, which of course is ostensibly explained at the end. But then you think, yeah, that wouldn't make any sense. And I think that it's very naive, I guess, to think that these people would be so self-aware. The reality is that
yeah, absolutely, totally naive.
These people wouldn't think that, it would be like, it's kind of weird. As I was watching this film, I was kind of imagining if I ever went on sort of holiday to rural America and in some weird way somebody asked me, like, what party do you support? And I was thinking, well, I really don't know what I'd say, because I would be I'd find it very awkward to say Democrat, because I would think if I said that, they would just think I was mental. I mean, remember that Top Gear episode where they go to the South and they want to get each other shot? Like the chances to see who can get the other one shot as quickly as possible. One of them just writes Hillary for president on someone's car, and
exactly.
That's like it. And then the joke is that would be like, that would really piss them off.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. It doesn't work the other way around. Like the reality.
Or you have somebody who worked on Hillary Clinton's campaign, which apparently Steve Carell did, coming to this town. Oh my God, he if people found out, there'd be pitchforks. Yeah. You're completely right. I agree with the overall message that both the Republican Party and the Democratic screw over. They screw over small towns. They don't really care about them. But are the town people self-aware that they know that? Absolutely no chance. They are as invested as politics. They're not all people who think, well, they're all the same. All these DC politicians. No. They hate Democrats. They really despise Democrats. Don't get it twisted. I'm sure some people think like that, but again, a large section. That's how Trump, of course, maintains a very popular base of support. Yeah, just absolutely despise.
Yeah, like the thing is, if these people really understood that Republicans are scum who are going to screw people over no matter what, then how on earth would any of them support Donald Trump?
Yeah,
they
no,
would,
exactly.
because they'd be like, well, Donald Trump is just the worst of the worst. The reality is, if these people were sincere in saying, oh, I don't like, the Democratic elite because they, serve themselves, they're crooked, they're whatever else, then they would be like, oh, I hate Donald Trump. But no, the majority of them support Donald Trump. So it's not about them being opposed to the West Coast or East Coast elite enriching themselves off the backs of the poor, because that's exactly what Trump's done. And I mean, you look at the fact, for example, that the Republican candidate in this film is also engaged in the very same nepotism that Trump has been engaged in by employing his own people in the White House and things like that. And they have no conception of it as a bad thing, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, the idea is ridiculous as well. They wouldn't care. I mean, I don't know if they like Bauer as much as Trump, actually. I don't know, because Trump has a very special cult around him. But yeah. Now, I think that what would make it realistic, Steve Carell walks into that bar and says, can I have a Budweiser and a beer? And Little Mike, I think that was his nickname, comes up to him and say, oh, so you're from DC, you're DC Gary. And Steve Carell goes, yes, I am. Tell me, I wonder if you could tell me how many children that John Podesta has raped. Could you do that for me? And that would be the satire, and it'd be hilarious. And it would be true as well. But yeah, I guess that's it, really. Just not realistic, really. It's a soft satire, and that means it's not that good, I would say, but it also means it's unrealistic. It doesn't take into account the extreme political views, or just views in general, that many, many rural Americans have. So, shall we get on to the conclusion, Michael? You go first, because I've talked.
Yes, okay, yeah, we'll get into the conclusion. Basically, this film, the issue with it, I think, is one, the messaging is a bit whatever. It's kind of, the thing is, it's not like wrong in a really interesting way. It's just very naive. I think the frustrating thing about this film is it's almost not hilariously bad. And I mean, if we're talking about hilariously bad film, it would be, conservative films, like, for example, Last Ounce of Courage, which maybe we'll review at some point, who knows, a film that is, from a conservative perspective, and it's hilarious because it's just so wrong-headed. This is, and even, I guess you could say, a film that fully commits to a kind of liberal naivety. But this film, it tries to be better. It tries to have this interesting plot about, how the kind of schism between the coastal elite and these rural areas, and kind of tries to get to something interesting. But I think the issue is, one, that it's just so on the nose at some points with some of the stuff. And two, it does feel like it's really not properly communicating what rural people are actually like, that it does kind of feel like it's saying like, oh yeah, man, the coastal elite just needs to realize that actually the rural areas are quite nice and everyone knows each other and no one locks their doors and all really friendly, and actually they're very self-aware about how they just don't like being screwed over by politicians who aren't doing anything for them. And three, and actually, by the way, on that note, I think it's funny that, a lot of these people I would imagine would be quite racist, but I feel like a lot of African American people are much more aware of are much more kind of apolitical in a way that makes sense with how they're treated. Like, I think there are way more black people in America who are like, we don't care about the government, the government's just screwing us over no matter what. And then they're actually consistent with that. Whereas in this case, these people aren't like that. But anyway, that's just a side thing. Basically, and I think the final issue is it's just not very funny. Like, the jokes are, whatever, and the funny thing is, actually, at best, I'd say it doesn't even work as a family comedy, like something where you can kind of just enjoy it as an offensive humor, because there's literally a line about like having a pussy eating competition or something. And like that really stuck out to me, because up until that point I was thinking, yeah, this seems like the kind of inoffensive, charming film that you could maybe you have, say, some Republican voting in-laws over, hypothetically. Maybe if your significant other came from a Republican family, you'd have some Republican voting in-laws over. Maybe you could put on this film and you could kind of naively pretend that we can all get along and laugh at it. But you can't even do that because they have that pussy eating line in there. It's just like, okay, point being, there's really nothing redeeming about this film. Now, honestly, based on that, you might even think like, oh, is it a 1? Because that's a pretty harsh thing to say. But to be honest, no. But it's not great either. I think honestly, it's a 2 out of 10. I'm going to put it below Tomb Raider and above Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice. I just, kind of remember enjoying Tomb Raider. Dawn of Justice I found kind of annoying. It also stars Jon Stewart, so I guess 2 films that are related to Jon Stewart, both next to each other. That's a 2 out of 10. It's number 144 on my massive list. Oh, actually, sorry, one other thing. You get it? It's Resistible because it's the Resistance.
I noticed at the end, which is very weird because it didn't really fit in with the rest of the movie, like the theme of it. But yeah, whatever. Irresistible, I guess. Sure. It makes sense, has the word resist in it. But yeah, I think to sum up on this movie, Michael, I mean, you said, yeah, Jon Stewart's naive, and I think that's the case. that is the case. Sorry, the townspeople in this movie aren't naive enough. They understand the DC politicians are playing them. Just totally ridiculous. And then, Jon Stewart is too naive not to think how crazy those, some people in that town might be. Like for that woman who served coffee to Steve Carell. Oh, look, she's so nice. She's so nervous.
In reality, she was fucking spitting in that.
Yeah.
He's a child molester.
She may think he's a child molester, That's just the reality. And it does really feel like, I think this movie overall is something from about 10 years ago. I mean, and the reason why I say this is you're combining the stereotypes that of rural America, the fact that they don't have internet and Wi-Fi, and the fact that these people are quite apolitical and they know they're getting screwed over by DC politicians. And you think, well, why that could maybe be the case 10 years ago, but it's definitely not, because, like I said, I think technology has moved on. But why do you think that right now that QAnon is such a big phenomenon? Why do you think that Trump managed to do so well in the Republican primaries and get the presidency? It's because all these fucking boomers go on Facebook and look at all this news, and they see stuff about Democrats and John Podesta and Hillary Clinton and now Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and all of that, and they think, oh my god, look at all this. And how do you access Facebook? How do you access Facebook, Michael? Tell me.
Internet.
Via the internet. Exactly.
Dial-up.
Yeah, and so dial-up. Yeah, that's the thing. And for those two reasons, it's the fact that it's 2017, and the fact that these town people aren't crazy, or some of them are not anyway. It does make me feel like, this is a movie written for like 10 years ago, when maybe those two things wouldn't have been the case. Maybe there isn't Wi-Fi everywhere, and that means maybe these apolitical townspeople are actually apolitical and haven't read, TruePatriotEagle.com stuff about Hillary Clinton running a child sex ring out of a pizza place in Washington. So yeah, that's the thing. It does feel old, and therefore the satire feels not only shit, but like I said, unrealistic. And yeah, actually, I'm thinking about the time when Steve Carell was pulled up next to a school. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, if that happened,
that's really funny.
Oh my god, if that happened. Look at what's going on. TrueEaglePatriot.com. Democrat operatives. That's the word they would use. Spy on school. Former person who worked for Hillary Clinton spying on school with a laptop. I mean, just writes itself, doesn't it? And that's what would actually happen, rather than that it'd be embarrassing. It wouldn't be embarrassing. They'd be accused of being paedophiles. That's what would have happened, especially since they're Democrats. It's just so naive overall from Jon Stewart. So I think 2 out of 10 is a fair rating, Michael. Let's hope, again, Jon Stewart's new show is better than this, because this was really, really shit overall. I mean, a good message, but yeah, the fact that he thinks that the townspeople would be aware of it is it's just you have no idea. You have no idea of what's actually happening in modern America. I was remembering when we were discussing this about how there was Facebook groups or set up to try. Well, there was basically fake news going about when Black Lives Matter protesters was going on, and these small towns, loads of people in these small towns got a bunch of guns and were ready to intercept a bus full of Antifa people that were supposedly coming to their town to burn it down. And you had like this town cutting down a tree to block the road so this bus full of Antifa people wouldn't come and destroy it. And they all got guns and so on. And then the wildfires on the west coast of the United States in California and Oregon, they had this. There was this story about these small town people, Trump supporters with rifles going around looking for a couple of liberals who were real people who they thought started the fires and maybe were going to shoot them. And these people had no idea. They were just passing through this town that they were being targeted and could have been killed. And it just the insane levels of, extremism, I guess, lunacy in these rural American places cannot be underestimated. But Jon Stewart did. So that's why this movie only gets a 2. What are we doing next week, Michael?
Well, next week we're doing a very similar film, I guess. Well, I say a very similar film, another film about politics, and it's going to be The American President.
Yes, and we look forward to that, The American President, and we shall see before then who the next American president is. Will it be Joe Biden and Donald Trump?
Yeah, I'm so excited. Almost as excited as I am for Halloween tomorrow.
Yes. So that is it then. We've been selecting and reflecting on Irresistible. I would say it's not very irresistible. I would say that is false advertising from Jon Stewart. And yeah, join us next week for The American President. Have you been Michael?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.